Sunglasses during a migraine. Groundbreaking. Hello, I'm here to discuss some of my thoughts about Devil Wears Prada 2. And unfortunately, I have been so stressed that I have caused a breakout migraine through my new and increased dose migraine medication. So, this is me this week. Fucking end me. Hello. Anyway, um, can I tolerate light? No. Can I tolerate being upright? Sort of. Because any sustained position makes me want to end. So laying down has not actually been that great. Regardless, I have been suffering. So I have been contemplating my thoughts about this film. I rewatched the first film as well to give me a reminder because it's been a minute. I haven't watched that film in a while, but I am covered in biofreeze and forehead. Not just my forehead. So if forehead ever wants to sponsor me, because this shit is so good, it's the only thing that works on your face. Forehead, contact me, thanks. This migraine woke me up in the middle of the night. That's how bad this migraine flare up is at the moment. So fantastic. We'll see how I go, We'll see how I go. I can read my screen. It also is making my jaw hurt because it just makes all the muscles hurt in like my neck and face. So let's just call it fashion and be done, It's fashion. I'm looking cunty slay, It's for the vibe of the video, absolutely. Let's pretend I got Botox and that's why I can't emote today. That's why I can't move my eyebrows. So, anyway, on to some of my actual points of this video. Some of my initial thoughts, because obviously I've only seen the film once because I went to the cinema with my mum. I did share that on my community tab. My mum wanted to see the film on one of the like May bank holidays because she actually had a day off, and I wasn't going to turn her down. I can't. The one thing is, I can't really see what's going on with my hair. It is what it is. So yeah, I wasn't gonna say no. I heard a lot of good and bad things, or at least early opinions or early fears of some people about this film. So, I was sort of just like, I'll give it a go. The worst thing I feel like I heard was about the racist depiction of a character. And I did read more about that during this process, which mostly came from, I believe, because the film was released in Asia first. So I personally will not touch massively on that because I'm a white person. So, I do not know or understand those nuances particularly well, but I do understand that a lot of these things come up quite often in Western media depictions of East Asian characters. So I do understand that, yeah, this is not great. And I did think that. So I saved this comment because I felt like this was one of the best summaries of multiple points I'd been seeing. This brief summary. So this was on like I think it was a Korean news Instagram I follow. So this person's responding to that, saying this brief summary is taking away a lot of the nuance to why Chinese netizens are taking offense to this character's inclusion. The name sounding like a very typical slur, basically, as a slur that English speaking people use. It's only one aspect of it. Another aspect is that the movie is about fashion and fashionable people, and the one Chinese character is dressed in nerdy attire with unkempt hair, according to the netizens in brackets, emphasizing the Western lens of viewing Chinese people as nerdy and unfashionable. There are also some people who say the name sounds like the word for ugly or smelly in their dialects or language. Please add all the relevant details next time. I did see some people say that that character, because they don't even have the full names on the IMDb, they just have first names, which is really interesting, even for like Andy Sachs. They just have her down as Andy. But they have her as, I think, Jin? Let me see if, like, Chin. So, yeah, it's written Jin, but it's pronounced Chin. I forgot what I was saying. Chin. Oh, it was said, it's been suggested that Chin is supposed to be sort of like the kind of reflection of early days Andy, which is why she's not fashionable. But I do understand the criticism of like it's conveniently always leading into the stereotype. I think as well, like, how fashionable was Charlie, the fat gay guy? Like, how fashionable could he be as a fat gay guy? When fashion is very thin. That was something that I mean, they're not the same thing, not the same issue, but that was something that I personally noticed as like somebody who has been a fatter queer person, that fashion is not particularly accessible, and it's gotten a lot worse recently as well. So yeah, just wanted to like acknowledge that, but also acknowledge the fact that I'm really not the person to comment further on that, but wanted to acknowledge that there's definitely like I've heard about it, and I do understand that, yeah, like that's one of the issues we have these days, where there's a lot of films claiming to diversify, but then they always end up failing the diversity because they end up leaning into harmful stereotypes a lot of the time. But then I have other criticisms as well around like what is considered harmful stereotypes when it comes to things like queer representation and trans representation and things like that. But that is a very different conversation and completely unrelated to this. So, but yeah, so I was vaguely aware of that, but I didn't know the specifics until after seeing the film. But yeah, moving on to like some of the initial thoughts I actually had about the film itself. I saw a lot of people commenting initially on like the color grading before I went to go see the film. I did not think the film color grading was that bad, and I did go and grab the original trailer, so I'll put some side by sides if possible of the original trailer and the new trailer. So I don't know if the new trailer has been edited since or not, but I had some theories I mentioned to my friend after I saw the film, that basically I think that either it's not as bad as people were saying it was, because like it just didn't look that bad when I went to see the film. I think either people were grabbing like the worst or most obvious screenshots from some of the trailers, or because like the only scenes that seemed to be super stark white were the scenes in the runway offices, or like any of those kinds of offices. Like it was the same in sort of the Dior office where Emily was working as well, because it's a fucking shop basically. So like I think either people were like being really picky about which screen grabs they were taking, because there was also that bit where Andy was brushing her teeth in the mirror, and it's like, that's a fucking bathroom scene. Most people's bathrooms are white, so yeah, of course that scene's gonna look really white and bright and like kind of like a toothbrushing advert, but whatever. I also don't remember that scene in the film, but it was in the first film. Like I am confused. Was that in the second film? I don't remember it in the second film, but it was actually in the first film. So I don't know if they stole that scene from the first film, because Anne Hathaway looks barely different enough to be able to tell which scenes were from which film. Sometimes people were being either really picky about which screen grabs they were taking. So I think, yeah, people being picky, Or like I think maybe it could have been a marketing ploy that they were specifically only sharing screen grabs that were really, really pale because they know people are always complaining about like color grading and lighting and stuff like that. So they wanted some kind of like rage bait press for it so that people would be like, oh, look at this film. It looks so different. What happened to 2006 lighting, or that maybe if there was a difference, they did it by accident and maybe just had a color grading person change the color grading after seeing the audience rage. I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea, but like it looks the same to me. It doesn't. It does not look that bad. Like outside of like magazine offices and like luxury shopping offices, things like that, it does not look that stark pale and white. And I think people may have just been doing that to have a clickbaity video. Which I know you all got bills to pay, but was there anything actually wrong? Or were they just not showing the rest of the film? Also possible, because that first teaser trailer, there was like nothing in it. Because yeah, when I watched that's why I also went back and watched the original film to see if there was differences in lighting and stuff like that too. And I felt like the original runway, hallways and stuff like that, and offices were bright too. And I think they were. Like a lot of their hallways were still very bright and white and stark. I don't think they were much different. And yeah, in general, I think it's an interesting color and lighting choice to make for a film, to only have the lighting and color be so stark and white in these offices and in these spaces. And that is also a point that I will come back to later on and delve more into. Other general points: Andy only has one of her original friends from the first film, the art gallery lady Lily, and I just think that says it all. The fact that it's the only friend from the arts industry that she had, just the fact that, the only one to understand the struggle and like the conflict of interests is the black woman who was working in the arts sector, who's also very successful now too. So nice one, Lily. I love you. Also, I see her in so many other things now too, and she often plays queer women, and I love her. Also, have to say, sound design was not great. Stanley Tucci's first line of the film, lost because the fucking music was too loud. Had no idea what he fucking said. So it's either the sound was like too loud, but also, did he get new teeth or dentures or something? Because he was talking weird. He was like speaking kind of funny for a lot of the film, but especially in that first sentence, I could not lip read him. And like anybody who is deaf slash has an auditory processing disorder will understand the struggle that most cinemas do not have many captioned film screenings. So I often end up having to go, if I do want to go to the cinema, I just have to go and like fucking guess my way through films. Yeah, so like his entire first line just fucking gone. I had no idea what he said. So the music was just so fucking loud over certain lines for no reason. And that is something that I will continue to fight for the rest of my life. I swear it didn't used to be this bad, and that is one thing I will hate Hollywood for, like, forever. Like, why are you doing this? This and lighting are two of like some of the worst things that they do now. Like, they can't balance either of these things anymore. Brother, what the fuck? I do remember seeing a story about Anne Hathaway preventing like super skinny skeletal models from being like used in the film this time around, which like, yeah, it's really important during the time that we're in at the moment, because like, everybody on our screens, whether it's film and TV Hollywood screens or influencer screens, even people in our day-to-day lives, because of like medications and stuff like that, but also like not medications. People are doing a lot of other stuff that's not good for themselves, you know, going back to bad habits and stuff as well, making unhealthy choices. People are shrinking in front of our eyes at like a really unhealthy pace and shrinking past an unhealthy weight for themselves. We see, like I said, like people are becoming like quite skeletal um in front of our eyes, and it's not good. So like obviously it's a good thing to prevent more skeletal people being on our screens, particularly in a film about fashion at this point in time. But that also doesn't mean like the majority of the people in this film aren't thin. Like this film is still full of thin people, and the only people who weren't thin were literally like there's two people in this film who were not skinny, thin, and that was literally Lily at a push, who I'd say is more of like a normal average size, mid-sized person, and then Charlie. Um, and they were both very small roles in this film. Both very funny, interesting characters, but they really didn't have much to like say in this at all. So, and again, I know it's fashion, blah blah blah. I know, like, I guess as well the old guy who dies. Spoiler. Is he thin? I don't know. I wasn't really looking at him, was I? And he's not in it that much either. But yeah, I mean, it gets a pass because it's like a fashion film. And like most people in fashion are skinny. So, but like we had like a brief moment in time where fashion wasn't all skinny people all the time. But yeah, that moment has left us, you know. Something fashion wise I appreciated quite a lot was that Andy was in a lot of like men's slash androgynousy kind of outfits in this film versus the first film, where she was often like having to dress very like femininely. I think this is like quite an interesting contrast. That could hint at like a power dynamic difference over the years, that now she's older, being taken more seriously, that she can be more chic, but this often means still dressing in like a more typically like men's attire, which does become a bit more fashion when working at runway. So like she is a bit less fashion at the start of the film, but then when she's at runway with a bit of help from Nigel, these more men's androgynousy looks have moments that are a little bit more fashion-y. So like for example, she'll have like a scooped back where the front will be like this high neck collared shirt moment with like a tie, or like soft silk textured items of clothing and pearls and things like that, instead of like typical men's textured clothing items and accessories. And as well, we see Miranda's actually wearing more suits this time as well, but then when she's actually at events she'll wear like grand dresses. But then when we compare them to Emily will be in like very sharp, structured, hardened, more like avant-garde kind of outfits and dresses with much more like black and white leather textures as well. There was a lot of black and white generally among them. Anne Hathaway had a lot of like softer creams as well. I think Nigel makes a reference, the character, because she's so pale she can't wear a lot of like stronger colors in a lot of these outfits. Yeah, it was just really interesting to see how each of those characters have like almost like grown up in their own way, and like how that has been depicted in like their new sense of style and their version of like professionalism. I also enjoyed the inclusion of Lady Gaga in this film as well, because as well, who's like the most fashion pop star out there if it isn't Lady Gaga? And like I can't remember what the song was that she was singing at the event near the end, but it was very like on topic, she was also wearing something fucking incredible in that performance and had this crazy cool, like, staff stick kind of moment. I also found the idea of Lady Gaga and Miranda like having a feud really funny. I don't know why. I just thought it was really amusing. Yeah, I also just wanted to note some of my Devil Wears Prada first film notes as well, just as like a little bit of a reference to what I thought of the first film and some of those elements too. Her boyfriend did suck because he also had a demanding job as well that had like really unsociable hours. He was working as a chef, and it's like I also dated a chef. If you're like working as a chef, you know, like we understand more now as well because we've got shows like The Bear where you kind of actually get to see what goes on behind the scenes and how much sleep these people get, how much work is kind of required a lot of the time. But my partner would often come home, lol. I was at uni. I was like 20, shut the fuck up. But they would come back to mine sometime around like 1 a.m., sometimes after work, maybe later, because that's when they would finish. So it's just like, it just seems a bit weird to be like fine with him having a demanding, unsociable hours kind of job, but not your girlfriend just because hers is in fashion, even though she didn't want to do fashion, but it might be a good step in the door for her like journalism career. And my friend I've talked to about this with was doing journalism and was going to go into like a professional journalism career. And she was like, even if she didn't do this shit in the first film and just went straight into journalism, that's also just completely unsociable hours. It wouldn't have been much different. Well, she still would have had to been fucking off and running around wherever, going off unsociable hours, showing up wherever, traveling, missing birthdays. It would have been the same kind of deal. It just wouldn't have been fashion. So is the problem because it's fashion and being a PA? Is the problem misogyny? Probably yes. I also made a note just because I thought it was interesting. Like, even in 2006, like the super rich and like super high ups in industries didn't like sick people coming to work and being sick at work and getting them sick at work. Because like Emily is looked down on when she's sick at work and she loses opportunities for being sick at work. Obviously she would have also like been looked down on and lost opportunities if she took the time off work. She specifically is treated poorly because she's visibly ill with like a virus at work, and also for screwing up her job because she was not feeling well and couldn't remember things and had like basically brain fog from having the flu and couldn't remember people's names and jobs at that event with Miranda. I thought it was really interesting as well that, the only friend that remains out of the friendship group, she doesn't call Andy out at any point except from this one point. Like, obviously she does say like it's your boyfriend's birthday at one point on the phone, but she doesn't actually really call out Andy except from here. Every other point she can understand it. She's like, yeah, it's a career move, girl. I get it. But when everyone comes to her like gallery show opening thing, I don't know what exactly it is, that blonde guy who is so unattractive to me. I never understood the appeal. He's unattractive to me. His personality is unattractive to me. I found the designer more attractive. He could call me. The designer with the ugly dresses from Miranda can call me. But the journalist guy cannot call me. However, he was the one at the gallery. Not sure why. Maybe he's writing about it. I don't know. But either way, he's there and he's flirting with Andy, and Andy's not shutting it down, even though her boyfriend's supposed to be at this gallery opening too. And that's when Lily calls her out. She's like, you have a fucking boyfriend. If you don't want to be with him, break up with him, but that's not okay. That is cheating. You did not shut that down. And Andy's trying to like brush it off. I was like, we were just talking. And it's like, no, that was not just talking. You know, that was not just talking. I just thought that was really interesting because otherwise she like lets everything else pass. But the leaning into possibly cheating on her boyfriend, even though her boyfriend does suck, cut it out. I respect that. So a bit more of a deep dive, I guess, I don't really know, into the second film is like the gist is like, film one was supposed to be about you don't let a shitty job suck your life and soul out of you. Right? Question mark. But also sometimes it's part of the process to get you to where you want to go in your career, question mark, because it did help her get to where she wanted to go. Because even though she threw away her phone and left that job, Miranda did give her that praise that got her next job. Because working anywhere for under a year is not necessarily going to get you a job, even if it is working for Miranda Priestley or what the fuck ever, particularly if it's for a different kind of career path. But he was like, well, we'll definitely hire you because that's high praise from someone like Miranda Priestley. And then, obviously the start of Devil Wears Prada 2, we see that she's literally got this or been having this amazing career where she's been traveling all over the world, being this journalist and winning awards. It did work out. It worked out well, except from how the industry is now working out, which it just isn't. The industry is now fucked. That's the problem. The industry's fucked. And now Devil Wears Prada 2 is sort of focusing on how present day the industry has a bunch of problems, and those problems are impacting people and people who have been in the industry for, even a short amount of time or like 20 or more years. So, literally at the start of this film, her whole table of award winning journalists were fired at an award dinner, which got her a lot of like viral attention. And there's a little bit of how she got this job of running the features at Runway. But also, spoiler alert, Nigel as well, because he did a little bit of recommending behind the scenes, but you don't find out until the end of the film. You're like, oh, okay, thanks, Nige. But also the online attention being on her, and her previous track record helped too. Also seeing the way that like the magazine is struggling in 2026 and relying on needing like a lot of ad space to keep running, because like they're currently going through a scandal. That's why they hired her. They're going through a scandal because I can't even remember what like they don't really fully explain what happened in that scandal either. They don't want to tell you. They don't want you to know. There was a scandal that happened that Miranda's trying to tidy up, but basically the scandal happened because they were all misled somehow. Question mark. Part of Andy's job is to come in, tidy that up, and then also kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit and maybe bring in some new readers by creating a new kind of vibe for the features, articles, area. So yeah, they have to go and suck up to all of their advertisers because everyone's really mad about this drama that's happened, which again, because they don't go into what actually happened, kind of doesn't really mean anything. like I can't recall what supposedly happened at all. It was bad. No, I can't remember at all what it was supposed to be. But yeah, so she comes in, does all that. She writes a load of like important like pieces that does basically nothing. Then she manages to get this really rich lady's interview, which nobody's been able to get. And the only reason she got this interview is because she did all these previous important pieces. And then because she was like, I really like what you've been doing. So sure, you can have the exclusive interview. And that changed basically the entire game. But then the owner of the magazine and like all the other magazines in the building fucking dies before he can give Miranda her promotion that he's been promising her for fucking years. And his son then takes over everything and is planning budget cuts on literally everything. So basically, he's planning to fire everybody. everywhere. And then Andy does some meddling and brings in Emily and her like manky tech bro boyfriend, who's the ex-husband of the lady that she did that interview with. He's really gross. He's really gross. Emily has a very low self-esteem. And they basically plan to fire Miranda right away because Emily wants to replace Miranda. And there's basically been like a whole load of like secret beef going on there that nobody told Andy about why Emily left Runway. She was kind of forced out by Miranda because Miranda thinks Emily has no vision for fashion and she's better off as like a retailer. But yeah, basically her gross tech bro boyfriend is eventually planning on replacing everything and everyone with AI anyway. And generally, this film kind of skates the surface of a lot of different issues. It doesn't really, like, it's frustrating because it's like a fine follow up to the first film. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people are making out to be. It's a fun follow up, and I really didn't expect it to go very deep. Like, I'm not sure who would expect it to go very deep, but like it does skate the surface of a bunch of different issues. And then there's a point that really did bother me that I feel like was maybe one of the worst moments for me of this film. It's when Andy tries to talk about all of this stuff with her boyfriend, who just doesn't get it, and they never really talk about it. They never really hash it out. They never hash out the issue or this difference, and just pretend it never happens when she comes back from Italy, which just feels like going backwards. It feels almost worse than what happened between her and Nate. You know, because she dumps the boyfriend for being a whiny bitch all the time and not getting it. And this time she's like, we're both just not perfect. I'll just ignore this, right? Let's just both ignore this and both just say we're not perfect, rather than having a conversation and explaining why. Because, like, you know, in the first film, she you know, does agree. She does apologize to Nate and agrees that, you know, she wasn't like super fair to him all the time. With a nuanced take on the first film, it's true. She's not always fair to Nate. She probably should have just dumped him a while ago. Because I would have. he's unbearable and annoying, and most of the time only particularly seems interested in sleeping with her. And that's just generally not what I'm here for anyway. So, you know, a transactional relationship question mark in the bin. You are only happy when I am doing exactly what you want me to be doing or having sex with you, question mark. Oh. Interesting. How about neither? I don't know. That felt weird. Fuck off to Boston, mate. But like, yeah, her new boyfriend couldn't understand this issue, like how this issue leading to her losing, like either like actually losing or possibly losing her job was not the same thing as him doing up old buildings into luxury apartments. Brother, what? Buildings that were already going to get knocked down in like anyway. So like he was preventing old buildings from getting knocked down in the first place, creating jobs, but also fuck luxury apartments anyway. Like this is definitely like more complicated than something that I could discuss with true nuance. But like, is this not a gentrification conversation? Is he not just basically making the area more expensive to live in? Like, yes, you're creating jobs for the people who work on the buildings and you're creating housing for rich people. Because even Andy wasn't sure she could afford those fucking places. Those things are not anywhere near the same thing. She's like, I could lose my house. I could lose my job. I could lose my income and ability to sustain myself, bitch. Okay, I upcycle apartments.
Shut the fuck up.
Alright, I upcycle apartments. No one cares. Shut up, you little Aussie bitch. The first Australian I hate. That's a lie. There's lots of people on Married at First Sight I've hated.
To my core.
You know, this man was not endearing himself to me. And they never like confronted this issue. They were just like, we're both imperfect. Yay! Andy, you're 40. You are a grown-up. You are too old to be doing that. Move on. And as well, I think some of these points are interesting when reflected with some of like the real world stuff as well going on, such as like the adverts and marketing. So yeah, going back to the lighting point I was making, the office is looking very white and clean, like an advert. There's been like numerous different ads for different products. Like I can't even work out how many there are. I think there's at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 for different kinds of products. I haven't seen all of them, but I keep finding more. But I have seen numerous ads on TV straight like out of the film set, featuring people like Stanley and Simone, possibly some of the other actors like Helen J. Shen, but like that's just off the top of my head. There might be some other people that may have also been in some of these adverts, advertising things like makeup, shampoo. I think there was things like mascara, lipstick, you know, things like that. I remember like one of the ones with Simone and Stanley was like one of those high-techy phones. I'm not sure if that was a Samsung or like a Google phone, the one with AI. And I've never seen advertisement quite so seamless before. Like film to ad with literally no adjustment. Like very bizarre. And I'll link an article in the description with more of like detailed information for like the ads and marketing of Devil Wears Prada 2 and like brand deals, as it is quite excessive. And it just feels a bit pointless going over all of those details in this video, as they're not like fully related to what I'm talking about. You can check them out yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot. But I think a lot of this comes from the fact that like films and TV shows aren't really allowed to like in-show advertise anymore. I'm a bit annoyed about this next section because I thought I was doing something. Here. But I think I'm just about to be British for like 20 minutes. Because our advertising and product placement laws are apparently different. I hadn't really realised quite. I mean, I've heard people talking about American adverts being crazy because they advertise medications and stuff like that, which we don't in England. We don't have adverts for like, do you have depression? You know, we don't have shit like that in England. But also our like product placement laws are the same. We are quite strict, but also like apparently our product placement laws were like even stricter pre-2011. So I've been trying to do some research because I saw a GQ article about specifically about The Devil Wears Prada 2 and its product placement bullshit apparently. So either I didn't notice all the product placement, or we just had a lot of it cut out because we are in England. So English people who also watched The Devil Wears Prada 2, let me know, because I'm still off my ADHD meds and I'm struggling to keep my attention, honestly. So I really could have missed all the product placement, but I have been noticing an uptick in product placement in TV shows and films and stuff when I watch them at home, like Prime boxes in things. But I don't know if that's different when you go to like the cinema. Did I miss all of the product placement? Because I feel like, because this article mentioned like Starbucks, for example. And yes, I noticed they were carrying Starbucks like cups and stuff. Did they say Starbucks a lot? I feel like they did say Starbucks a lot. But I think all their Starbucks cups were covered. So I think that they at least covered all their logos. But I did notice them saying it, and I was thinking, that's weird. That feels a little bit less bizarre, because I feel like before I was conscious of Starbucks the brand, because I feel like Starbucks wasn't as big in England for a lot of my life. And when it finally did become bigger in England, and I went back and watched a bunch of films, like American films, that I loved in childhood, there were loads of Starbucks fucking references, and I was like, oh, I had no idea what the fuck Starbucks was. So, like, I feel like them referencing Starbucks is maybe less weird. I just feel like maybe it's just not very classy. Like, of all places, Miranda Priestley decides to get coffee. It's fucking Starbucks. Really? Sounds fake, but okay. You know what I mean? Anyway, I might still keep it all in anyway, because I think I had some points that maybe are more reflective of my thoughts, that maybe are still relevant, just maybe not actually specific to this film. Who knows? Anyway, you learn and you learn in it. Anyway, bye. You know, like back in the day, you used to see like branded like advertisements. Like you used to see characters use branded items on screen a lot. And that wasn't by accident. They were paid to be used by those brands. So you would see your favorite characters, you know, drinking a can of Coke and think, oh, my favorite character drinks Coke, so I'm going to go drink Coke, not Pepsi. Or like whatever mundane market competitor there is, because, you know, most of these drink companies are all owned by the same fucking company, like parent company. You know, it's why you don't see like the Apple logos on a laptop that's clearly an Apple laptop anymore, because it's seen as advertising. So in some ways, this is a clever way of linking the film to the products still, and making use of the costume, actors, and sets, and also boosting the marketing of the films as well. And then also, as the article says that I've linked below, marketing campaigns, however overstimulating they may seem, help studios spread the word about a movie so people will go and see it. And when people see movies, the studio makes money so they can make more movies. And that's why I was wanting to add this piece in, because like just like seeing and watching my usual shows in the evenings with my mum, most of the adverts I'm seeing coming up are the same like few adverts from the Devil Wears Prada 2 film. Like it'll be, I can't remember which one it is, but it's like Simone Ashley using mascara, or it's Simone Ashley and Stanley Tucci using this stupid shitty phone, and it's AI to try on clothes for an event. You know, so it's like I'm seeing their characters in the set and like somewhat relevant products to the film being used. So I'm being advertised those products as well as the films, the film, singular. So like they're getting like a 2-for-1 deal with these adverts, and like those actors are also getting like a 2-for-1 deal, being paid for their film acting as well as being paid for those ad campaigns. And ads pay. And that's the whole thing at the moment as well. Going off on a bit of a rant here, I guess. That's why a lot of the actors and writers and other people too, like animators and stuff, have been protesting, like the SAG, AFRA, whatever, because the whole like streaming has killed actors, writers, animators making money. Disney just sacked all of their like human staff because they now have an AI to animate now. Streaming like Netflix and whatever does not earn people money the same way as when we had cable TV. And that's the same with music too. That's why a lot of music artists are like, yeah, we would rather you just fucking bought our CDs. Just fucking buy our CDs, guys. And that's why a lot of people also protest and boycott like Spotify as well, and say, hey, use a different streaming platform if you choose to stream, because there are certain platforms that pay the artists better. So like a lot of actors now who you would have thought make a decent amount of money don't make great money anymore. Even people who would have made decent money back in the day, they don't make great money anymore because, even if they would have made great money from before, they don't make it anymore. Shows aren't being shown in the same capacity. Things are on streaming platforms which aren't making the same amount of money or same kind of money. The royalties are not the same, even if you filmed those shows or films pre-streaming. A lot of people's royalties have changed and dropped since then. And then if you film now, it's the same. And then also a lot of issues I've seen as well since all of that has been happening, a lot of like mid-range actors who, fill in for like a few episodes, or like random guy does this. A lot of them are no longer getting work because a lot of massive stars now can't afford their lifestyles and are now getting those smaller jobs. And it's something that I've mentioned a few times on my channel of like, oh, these movie stars are now in TV shows, and like these TV stars are now in these shitty Christmas films, and it's now pushing out those small actors you may not know the names of, but they were working actors. They were actors who were living off of their wage. Now no longer are able to work, like live off of their wage, because they can no longer get work because of these bigger actors now no longer being able to sustain those lifestyles anymore. So these actors in like Devil Wears Prada getting these 2-for-1 deals of like a role in a film as well as a few different advertising deals. When advertisement gets you some decent money, like, yeah, fuck it. Why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they say yes unless they are already making massive amounts of money? Because, it's interesting who has and hasn't said yes to those deals. Like, I haven't seen any adverts that included Anne Hathaway or, why can't I remember her name? I've got the thing up here. What is her name? Meryl Streep. It's the migraine. It's probably not the migraine. It's still the ADHD that's not being treated. Also, they really have such a fucking random selection of cast in this film. Like, why is Kenneth Branagh? I don't know how to pronounce that in this. Can someone also explain to me why Kenneth is playing the violin at the old magazine guy's funeral? Is he not a guest? Why is he not a guest? Why is he working the funeral? Is he he's literally Miranda's fucking like boyfriend or husband. That prenup is like really working hard, isn't it, mate? Got your own bank account and everything, am I right? Working really hard for that paycheck, am I right, man? Like, brother, what are you doing? What is going on? Lucy Liu, very random selection of people. They were clearly just like, Hey, nobody has any money. So if you want more money, do some brand deals. Be an influencer, bitch. Anyway, sorry. I did have like a direct statement to that quote I just read out. The quote that I read as well is like more specifically linked as well to like the campaign of like all the additional merch being sold outside of the advertisements that I'm talking about too. But I wanted to discuss like the adverts as they are linked with like the look of the film itself. And yeah, I wondered if it was part of like the purpose of the lighting of the office to look like an ad campaign, because they were literally using them for ad campaigns. That article was talking about creating a moment, and it's like, yeah, are they creating a moment, or is there just like no money in the industry anymore, and that's just how they're getting money for the film? Creating endless merch that's just gonna go in fucking landfill. But yeah, also other events such as the Met Gala are also relevant right now right now as well, as people who know a little more about the film will know that Miranda Priestley is based off of Anna Wintour, who, this is where I start. I don't really know who I think organizes or is part of the organizing of the Met Gala in real life, and she was very shocked that people were not pleased about Jeff Bezos having involvement slash being the main sponsor of this year's Met Gala. And honestly, the other like Meta, Gen AI, like Open AI, and social media heads also being involved, in my opinion, like I don't want them there either. Like, wasn't the whole point of the Met Gala to like raise funds to continue to like take care of the stuff that's at the Met? Question mark. Like I don't know shit about the Met Gala, but I enjoy the Met Gala as like a fashion and art thing, spectacle to look at, because I don't think any of the other like red carpet esque events are quite so spectacular and quite so weird. Like, this seems to be the one event where people kind of get a bit weird with it. Nowhere else is really that weird. I don't like that. But I think there was a really good post that I feel like kind of sums up reasons why bad, from the Anarchist Zine. So I'm just going to read that out. What's wrong with the Met Gala? The Met Gala 2026. The lead sponsors were not a fashion house or Hollywood studio, but Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez Bezos. Reportedly contributed 10 million. Amazon, Meta, OpenAI, Snapchat, and Shopify. That's a random choice. All purchased tables at $350,000. Individual tickets hit $100,000, up from $75,000 in 2025. The Met Gala is no longer about the arts or a way to honor fashion. It is a platform for capitalism to thrive, to throw it in our faces, for the mega rich to dress up and feel something. The mega rich can't take away our art, they can't take our passion, and they can't take our community. More than ever, AI and capitalism is consuming more of us. Stop and think, stop consuming and start creating. So I felt like that was a reasonably useful, like, brief synopsis of like who was there and who was spending like money and who was sponsoring this event. Because I thought it was very funny, not actually funny. Ironic. I thought it was ironic. After all that was said in The Devil Wears Prada 2, and particularly how much involvement Anne Hathaway seemed to have in this film, especially, that she turned up as someone's guest to a fashion show sponsored by Bezos. You know, like, I like the ideas of the film, and I think the people who are not aware of these industries, you know, fashion, journalism, writing in general, may have their eyes opened a little bit to the fact that the tech and Gen AI industries have been coming for our jobs for like a while. And it's getting worse. So that they might have their eyes open a little bit thanks to this film. But I don't think it's really doing anything that incredible. You know, it's a nice follow up to the original. You see some character growth from everyone, some self awareness from Miranda. You see them save Runway, and Miranda and Nigel and Andy all get their big offices next to each other. Andy gets to give her journalist friends jobs like she hoped for at the start of the film, which is something I think all millennials dream of being able to do. We see Emily kind of see the error of her ways. She gets dumped by the AI tech bro. She doesn't even leave him, he dumps her. And you're like, Jesus Christ. And she's now working at Coach instead of Dior. I don't know what the difference is. I know nothing about any of that shit. Like, who knows? Who cares? You know, and I gotta say, like, Lucy Liu looks incredible, and I'm obsessed with her little, like, arc. And I think we all wish we were her, or that there were more of her in the world. And, you know, I felt like she was kind of a reflection of Bezos's ex-wife, who donates all of, like, her money that she gets from her part that she owns of Amazon that she got in the divorce from Bezos. You know, the idea of an ex of a billionaire saving the arts would be nice and all, but like, alas, I fear that's never going to happen. Eat the rich. Who said that? Who said that? I don't know. Again, it's kind of like a fantasy version of today. It's like, yeah, we can say physical media. Physical media is important. Journalism's important. Fashion and magazines are important, with no actual feasible way of doing that. No feasible way of that ever happening. There's no part of this story that is actually achievable. Does anybody have a billionaire's phone number that we could just go like, can we just go pop round their house? Knock, knock, knock. Hello. Can we just borrow $1 billion? Can we borrow £1 billion, please? Thank you very much. Especially because, like, Lucy Liu's character, whose name I don't fucking remember, she's just kind of like, you know, yeah, just use all the money you want, however the fuck you want. I trust you, bitch. Slay. And you're like, sick one. Amazing. Feminist queen. And that was it. That was everything. So, like, yeah, if you don't think too hard, it's a great film. It's a great film that makes a little bit of commentary about social media and tech sucks. Sucks and has been harming a lot of industries that people give a shit about. But if you want to think about it, it's not really saying a lot and doesn't have anything feasibly for any of us to do unless you know a billionaire or 5. Because that's basically all that happens in this film, is that you just have to go and you have to keep asking a different billionaire until you find the least awful billionaire. Ha! Just keep knock, knock, knocking on heaven. So, what song is that? Either way. So yeah, you know, a mainstream film that says next to nothing. Groundbreaking. Am I surprised? No. Am I surprised that anybody else is surprised? Yes. Why did anybody think that Devil Wears Prada 2 was going to say anything? I don't know. I don't think it's as bad as people have made it out to be, but I also don't think it's as good as people were expecting it to be. Because why did you expect it to be better? I don't know. I did expect the relationship aspect to be a bit better than it was. Like I said, I was really disappointed in like having no conversation and just being like, "Wow, we're flawed people. We're flawed people. Let's just ignore everything that has ever happened. Nobody needs to know. We don't need to discuss this ever again. You know, nobody. No, I don't need. No, I don't need to talk about it. Yeah, also zero development for like literally any other character who wasn't in the previous film. You know, all of the side characters, zero development. Nothing for Chin, nothing for Charlie, nothing for Amari. Is that her name? Amari. We don't even see Miranda's children. Yeah. This film is just about like the original four, basically, and everybody else is a prop, and that doesn't help the stereotyping problem. Uh, so, if they'd maybe thought a little bit more about that, we may not have had so many issues. I also remember people saying like, "Oh, there's a lot more like TikTok fashion." I think the only thing I remember seeing was the ugly like tassel jacket that Miranda wears once, but otherwise, I don't feel like they are that extremely dated. I felt like 2006 was very dated, to be honest. Pageboy hats are quite dated to me of 2006. Someone tried to say that wasn't the fashion wasn't dated. It's like, well, it's quite dated. I don't know what you mean, but okay. Like, it definitely was a time capsule for fashion. Just because the trend has come back round doesn't mean it's not dated. I don't know. I guess that's my thoughts in general. Like I said, this is just my thoughts from the point of view of if you really want to go into it a bit more deeply, if you want to think about it more. The film doesn't go that deep. It sort of tries to go deeper, but it doesn't actually go that deep. It's a fun time to watch, I guess. Like I enjoyed myself in the cinema. There were some things that were funny. There were some things that I found relatable, particularly as like a creative in this day and age, struggling in the Gen AI endemic, the tech bro endemic. I definitely like to hear other people's thoughts. You know, what did you think, especially comparing the first film to the second film? Do you think the first film had more thought put into it? Do you think they had a bit more of a narrow like view? Do you think they had a bit more of like a clear gaze they were going for, a clear point they were trying to make in the original film versus this film that I think it felt a little bit all over the place. I think they had an aim, but that they tried to incorporate a few too many things for me. That's what I think it was. Let me know your thoughts. If you've seen it, what do you think? Anything that I've missed? Because like I said, I've only seen it the once. I tried to remember things. Obviously, I couldn't sit in the cinema and make notes either. So it was really full too. If it wasn't such a full cinema, I would have probably sat on my phone to make notes in the back on like low brightness mode. But because it was so full, I didn't want to do that. So because otherwise, when I do watch things for the first time, I make my notes. So I'm trying to do it based off of memory and doing a watch through of the first film, kind of making some comparisons and based off of what I talked with my friends about and some of these articles I've seen popping up as well. So I'm sure I've probably missed some big things and I'm going to be really annoyed when I've remembered other parts. So like I'd like to have some conversations in the comments. Let me know your thoughts of the film if you've seen it. Feel free as well. Tell me your thoughts on the original film too, because happy to talk about the original film under here as well, because it has some relevance too. That's my video for this week. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Go check out another one of my other videos. Let me know if there's anything else that you'd like me to talk about. Yeah, I am heading off to Glasgow Zine Fest soon as well. So I'm trying to make sure I've got all my videos sort of ready for this month. I think I have, but also, as you can see, I'm literally struggling so much with my migraines, even though I'm on new medication. Whilst I have videos planned, I'm now struggling to film them. So I'm hoping I'll be able to film some things next week and that I won't fall behind, but we'll see. Hopefully there won't be any disruptions to my videos. But either way, that's my video for this week, and I will see you next week. Bye.